And yes, I am a registered medium in Lilydale, but I am also a vintage astrologer of 5 decades. So I am thrilled to have some of the best astrologers on the planet coming to Lilydale and being with us on this podcast. And today is no exception. Kenneth Millar, all I can say is beyond brilliant, outside of being incredibly charming. He has an opportunity to bring to us two worlds. We're going to be able to understand the Vedic and we're going to be able to understand the Western, which to me is incredibly exciting. But before we allow him to get involved in that, I'm going to ask him to tell us the story of how the magic of these astrology aspects affected him in his life and why when you can do so many things in this world did you choose to not only study but to advance yourself in these fields. So it is an honor and a pleasure to introduce my friend Kenneth Millar. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. That introduction was a bit over the top. I will try to live up to that, but I'm really grateful to be here and I am excited to share in Lilydale's magic this summer during Astrology Week. My story begins quite early. Um, my mother was a amateur fan of astrology and that she identified as a Scorpio and let everyone know that she had those traits. And I remember her reading the horoscopes out of the newspaper. And when I was old enough to read, I would read the horoscope out of the newspaper because they were usually on the same page as the comic strips. And back then, many families had the newspaper delivered every morning, and I would get that, and I would read the comic strips, and I would read the little, advice of the day. And then there used to be in the supermarket for some very small amount of money, a tiny booklet that would be like, your sign for the coming year. And I'd always be like, Mom, buy mine. And she would get that for me. And those are kind of my earliest memories of astrology. But then at about age 12 or 13, I was in a convenience store looking at the magazine rack, and they had astrology magazines like American Astrologer. I mean, I forget exactly which one it was, but I was like, oh, I like astrology. And I picked it up and I opened it up and I saw a chart for the first time, like a birth chart with all the planets. And at first I was like, what am I looking at? And then it dawned on me, oh, of course you would look at where everything was, not just the sun. And that kind of awakened this larger understanding of like, oh, astrology looks at everything. And so at that point, I started like reading real astrology, like saving up my allowance. And then I think I was a paper boy at that time, so really using my own money. Um, Getting astrology books and self-teaching how to calculate because back then there were no computers. You had to do it by hand with I mean, I had a calculator, so I'm not that old. I am old enough that we had calculators, so that did stuff. But you had to learn to do it by hand. And so I taught myself how to do it. I got a friend interested and we would do it together. And that was sort of my foray into quote unquote real astrology. I continued to read books through high school. In college, I was a very amateur astrologer. I would occasionally do readings for money, but most of the time it was, just like doing readings for friends. I did teach a couple of classes in my very early 20s at metaphysical bookstores about topics that interested me. But it was always an avocation. Um, it's always something that interested me, and my astrology library was like slowly growing over the years. Um, and then in, I believe it was 1995, but it might have been 1996. I should fact check myself. I was on vacation in a place where I remembered there being a Vedic astrologer who advertised in Mountain Astrologer. And I called this guy up, and I was only there for a few days, but he was able to work me into his schedule, and I got my first Vedic astrology reading. I had avoided Vedic astrology because I had heard they use the sidereal zodiac, which is a zodiac that basically pushes all the planets back a sign almost always. And that just didn't make sense to me, how someone you could be like a Taurus moon and then suddenly you're an Aries moon. I mean, how does that even make sense? So I kind of, even though I was very interested in Indian things and philosophy, the astrology just seemed a little weird. But I kept hearing stories over the years about how great the astrology was. And so I thought, well, let me go for a reading and see what it's about. And I was very impressed with what this guy saw in my chart, to the point I was like, I want to start studying this. What do I do? And he was like, oh, well, good news. We're having our big international conference in where you live, outside of San Diego this year. So later that year, I attended that conference. I didn't really understand much. It was all over my head, but I knew it was something I was interested in. And of course, I bought a bunch of books and started taking like correspondence courses and started teaching myself Vedic astrology. Then we fast forward um, a few years, and my father passes away, and that as I'm introspecting on he died early. Um, I'm thinking, gee, what do I want to do with my life? And I thought at that point I wanted to make a go of being a professional astrologer, at least try. So I started going through the certification process in the Vedic astrology world. Um, and eventually I got my certifications in that world. And just about the time I got my advanced certification, Kepler College was offering a master's degree in the history of astrology. And I was like, that would be, I want to go back to school, A, because I am interested in the history of astrology, and B, it'll help me get my writing skills back on track. So I enrolled in Kepler and was one of the few people that got out, with a master's degree in the history of astrology. And um, then I've been a professional astrologer ever since, doing consultations, teaching, mentoring, the whole nine yards. Now, the question behind the question is, why do you love astrology so much? I don't have a story where like astrology saved my life or I was completely adrift and I looked at this chart and I had this thing. It was just sort of this love affair that I always had, and always liked astrology, and I can't really explain it rationally. If there are such thing as past lives, maybe I was doing it in past lives, I don't know, but there's just been this fondness for it, and I like how astrology tells the story that we're rooted in this larger cosmos and that we all contribute and participate in this larger frame. And it's very easy to feel like disconnected and uh, alone and distraught in today's world. But I feel like astrology reminds us, as do any really spiritual tradition, reminds us that there is this like larger cosmos that we have this relationship to, and that um, has something to say about our life.
Well, you've been very humble because you didn't tell everybody that you were became president of Kepler
Mm.
College and kept it together for others who wish to have, Kepler College is one of the colleges that you can get an actual degree in astrology. And yes, it is your curiosity that for this wonderful world of astrology that always has brought me to a place to want to know even more about Vedic as well as Western,
Yeah.
because as you and I know, there are so many opportunities to see different points of view.
Hmm. Yeah, often I'm asked, and we might get into this later, but often I'm asked, like, oh, which is better, or did you choose Vedic because it's better? No, and I left a lot out of the story. Once Kepler lost the ability to be like an academic degree granting institution, and then it pivoted to a more vocational model. And it was shortly after that pivot that, yes, I had been on the board of Kepler, board of directors, and then stepped into the president position for a short while to, really, I was just guiding the other people that were doing the heavy lifting of keeping the college moving forward. I've also been on the board of
Isar?
the ESAR, nationally, locally. I've been on NCGR and the San Diego Astrological Society. I was most recently president of that for a few years. And yeah, so I have volunteered in the profession. I've had the opportunity to speak really around the world, which has been fantastic, meeting astrologers all over the place. And I also had some really great teachers along the way. I studied with Robert Zoller. I studied at Project Hindsight briefly, but followed their cassette tape offerings back then, and the publications. Studied under Lee Lehman, the late great Lee Lehman, and Demetra George. So I've had some like amazing shoulders to stand upon and really blessed with great teachers. Beginning with my very first teacher, who no one knows, Helena Runau in Colorado Springs. She was the first non-book teacher that started me with like modern astrology. So um,
Well, some
yeah.
of our viewers may not know what Project Hindsight is.
Project Hindsight was a project in the 90s and aughts that went back to Western astrology's dawn and translated the extant Greek material. And is why we have Hellenistic astrology today, probably is because of all the work that Project Hindsight did. Robert Schmidt um, translated a whole bunch of stuff from Greek into modern English. He also did extensive philosophical seminars on astrological ideas and Hellenistic ideas, and influenced Chris Brent. If you know Chris Brennan of the Astrology Podcast, he lived at Project Hindsight for a while. So really the reawakening of Hellenistic astrology, the beginning of Western astrology, is because of Project Hindsight. They also translated Latin works. Rob Hand was part of that. They translated a couple of Hebrew works. I don't think they got to Arabic, but that was on the slate before the project ended. Um,
Well, I know
yeah.
Michael Irwin worked with
Oh yeah.
Tibetan,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Kepler himself, who was he?
Kepler himself was remembered today as an astronomer, a great astronomer, but also paid the bills by doing astrology. And until recently, when you read like history of science, it used to be like, oh, he just did astrology because like he, needed money, but he didn't really believe it. But all the people back then believed that we were under the influence of the heavens. And
And
yeah,
now,
and a lot of astronomical mathematic innovation was to make the calculating of charts easier. You know, yeah, that's a little known factoid.
Well, as Carl Sagan said, we're made up of 47% stardust. So there's no doubt in my mind or yours that we are part of this cosmology. But not to worry, we are going to allow our audience an understanding that yes, we have the advantage of having a brilliant, brilliant astrologer with us today, but he has the ability to allow you to understand this on your own level. And this
I
is why
hope.
I love Kenneth.
I hope.
You know, and of course, when you come to Lilydale, you'll be able to meet him and he can answer your questions there. We've got a very exciting concert that we're going to have to start off things on the 18th of August, where you get to meet every one of them and have a concert. I mean, I just think we want to welcome you with the vibration of light and love and Lilydale. So,
Yeah, be there. It's going to
yes,
be, there
yes.
are, I mean, forget about me. There are great astrological luminaries that are coming, and wherever you are in your astrological journey, there will be something for you. Um, and we will talk about my offerings later in the show. But yes,
Well,
it's
Rick
going to be
Levine
fun.
mentioned you in his podcast that he put together for March. So, you know, you are very much respected. Of course, I know you're very humble as well. So you are, and and very thorough in what you do. So,
Oh
what
yeah.
do you think is going on between Neptune and Saturn? I mean, everybody's talking about it. I know what my personal feelings are, but I want to hear yours.
So you're succinctly, what are your personal feelings about it?
Well, I believe this entire year is about spiritual involvement.
Okay.
And I think that this aspect is part of the structure
Mm-hmm.
and the nudge
Mm-hmm.
for us to look at our authentic selves
Yep.
so that we can go to the level that we need to go to in order to evolve. Now, there are some people will evolve to very high levels of consciousness, and some may choose just to be here.
Yeah. That's nice. I like that. That's a less dark portrait than what I'm about to paint.
Well,
Let me start by saying, but don't worry, it's not terrible. I don't. So the study of the impact of these larger planetary cycles on society and people, we call that mundane astrology. It's just a technical term. I don't consider myself an expert, and I don't spend many hours analyzing the charts of countries. But in preparation of today, I did look at the chart of the US and I did look at this conjunction of Saturn and Neptune. So Saturn is the planet of structure, discipline, limit. Um, I've said we'd really have, without Saturnian energy, everything would be one thing, and therefore we'd have no thing because there wouldn't be anything to distinguish things from else. Saturn is traditionally the planet that if you have been lying to yourself or fooling to yourself, it brings you to your senses, it shows you the truth. Usually it will give you warnings ahead of time. You know, people who have horrible Saturn stories, if you listen to, well, what happened before that, they've usually been given a sign that maybe they need to change course, but they're, being stubborn, and then Saturn steps in and says, "I'm sorry, we got to clear this out. This is not serving you anymore." Um, Neptune is a more aspirational, dreamy, not metaphysical, mystical energy, the ability to see into the other world. People that have strong Neptune placements in their chart usually have a strong sense of intuition or have a foot in both worlds. It has a transcendent quality often. The underside of that is illusion. Dreams aren't real, but they can have real messages in them. So what happened is every X amount of years, I forget how, 28 to 36 years or something like that. Saturn will come around and catch up to where Neptune is, and they'll join together in the sky, which is what just happened and what everyone's been talking about. And that happened in the degree of Aries. So they had just Neptune had just crossed into Aries for a little bit, and then Saturn comes up and joins together. Unfortunately for Saturn, Aries is one of its weakest placements. By weak, I mean it's uncomfortable there. In astrology, there are signs that a planet owns and it likes to be in its house. It likes to be in those places. And it also has a place where it is like elevated, unbelievable, treated like an emperor, and then a place where it is very uncomfortable. And Aries is the place where Saturn feels very uncomfortable. So my take of this is you have a weakening of kind of the truth structure aspect of this combo and a kind of unfettered, dreamy, illusional quality. And so I think this is, and it's been going on for a few years. These things have kind of an orb of influence. It happened exactly a month ago. Um, People have never been so confident in believing misinformation or illusion or beliefs. And that's what I see as kind of a problem for our culture right now. And I would have liked to have seen Saturn be a bit stronger because when you go back into the past and you look at what was going on in America at previous conjunctions, we've had some interesting things. They haven't all been great, but I went back as far, I think 1846 was the first one that happened, and that is the year the US basically conquered all, coast to coast, and we had a continent, and there was this dream, this that it was like manifest destiny, it is the destiny of the nation to expand into what is now the United States, the continental United States. Now, it wasn't great for Native Americans, but in terms of the chart of the United States, it like pushed us out. It's interesting that in 1882, when this happened in the sign of Taurus, there were also immigration was in the news. Immigration was banned. We banned Chinese from coming to America for 10 years. That year, there was a lot of anti-immigration fever, so that was sort of interesting. But when we get to when this happened in Libra, which is where Saturn is exalted, in 1952, 1953, it happened like three different times over those 2 years. That's considered, according to the history books, kind of the golden age of capitalism, and the American dream as we knew it back then. Now, some people may say, yeah, there was still a lot wrong. I'm not saying it was a great place for everyone in America, but if you were white and middle class, yeah, it was pretty good, in the 50s. We then had in 89 that, and again, one of the conceits of doing this, oh, we had this big thing, let's talk about it. Nothing happens in a vacuum. And so we're not actually looking at where all the other planets were, what other interactions were. This would be a more thorough, if we were going to do a real thorough analysis. But there was kind of there was as you may recall, some may recall, 1989 we did have a bit of a financial crisis in that the savings and loan industry needed a bailout. to the tune of about $430 billion in today's dollars. It was like 200 billion back then, but in today's dollars, it was like half a trillion. They needed a bailout again because of non-Saturnian practices. And so Saturn comes up to Neptune and was like, this is, you got to be real here, and so there was this financial crisis. So then we get to now where we are in a fire sign, and I'm sure other people have spoken to that, but I just feel like, yeah, it does feel like Saturn is kind of the weak player of this combination. So I do like everything you said, Patricia, and I hope that what this does is that, yes, Neptune like leads people to spiritually evolve, and that the weakened Saturn, maybe that's their ingrained things that are holding you back start to dissolve away. I would love for that to be true, but I think the other side of that is people are just like rigidly committed to illusion, and a day doesn't go by that I don't get at least one, if not many, fraud emails. Almost all the ads I'm subjected to on social media are have a tinge of fraud to them. They're either misrepresenting something or they're greatly exaggerating a product. I mean, stuff that would never fly on TV where we had regulations that affected the ad industry. And I think, often amongst my peers, I'm having conversations where you just have to approach life as if everything is trying to trick you or fraud you unless it proves otherwise. Now, if your life experience isn't that way, fantastic. But I just find that, particularly with the modern technology, like AI stuff, it's getting harder to detect what's AI and what's real. Um, yeah, it's just
You
a
are on
call
our
to the,
AI panel.
yeah.
But I also agree. I think that, there is this aspect that, as you will experience at the end of April, where Uranus and Gemini is going to be squaring the North Node and the South Node. And to me, what that says is when that Uranus and Gemini squares the South Node, it's like pay attention to details. And when Uranus squares the North Node in Pisces, use your gut instinct. Is this true? And, I saw this whole thing about Pope Leo offering to sell like indulgences. It's like that, 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 that. And he's saying, yes, it was in Hebrew. And I'm going, come on, King Solomon didn't speak Hebrew, and we're talking they spoke Aramaic. And, this to me is like, oh my gosh, people, they're going to use everybody and his brother to not use your positive thinking or your research thinking. It's like, did King Solomon speak in Hebrew? I don't think so. I mean, you're absolutely right. But I think that you're on the table with this, that we have to wake up because Uranus is that lightning bolt that says, hello, hello,
Yeah, I'm looking forward to that. And, there's usually a very unpredictable quality, so it's hard for astrologers to wrap around what exactly, but hopefully it will be a good, a good something that wasn't predicted, a good shift. And yeah, that'll be an opportunity. And there's, plenty of opportunities to, deal with these energies in different kinds of ways. But um, yeah, exciting
well,
times.
it is exciting times. And as the Chinese word for crisis is also the same word for opportunity.
Yep.
So if you're willing to look at the crisis, are you willing to look at the opportunity? And I think that there's a bit of truth as long as we keep looking.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's plenty of good stuff out there. It's just you gotta use your reason.
Now, from the Vedic perception, as you said, it everything goes backwards. So Saturn's in Pisces and
Yeah, it's a little less I can it's a bit better in the sidereal zodiac. They do move back to Pisces, which means they're both ruled by Jupiter, which is a benefic planet, and Jupiter's not doing there are times in the coming year where Jupiter's not doing too bad in the sky to help out. And I see it more when I look at it through Vedic eyes, I see it as more um, there's opportunities for the truth to come out, more, and for people to maybe, you know, see things more clearly. So it's a little, if I switch it to sidereal zodiac, I do find it less bleak, although the house switches. So it's if you use whole sign houses with the typical chart people use for the United States, Aries is the fifth house, and that's where in the tropical zodiac that happens. You move into the fourth house with the sidereal zodiac because it's funny. The sidereal chart of the U.S. Is the same rising sign. It's just much lower in degree. And so you get a similar spin there. But the fourth house in Indian astrology is home. It is your mind, so to have those planets in your mind and to have, again, that illusion factor kind of jacked up by being in Pisces. But I feel like because they're ruled by Jupiter and what Jupiter is doing, it's less bleak. And it's, if I looked further in the Western chart, it might be less bleak too. It's not like I prepared hours and hours for this, but um, I think I
oh,
think if you the people that are using Neptunian energy constructively, that is, you're seeking higher wisdom, you are trying to push the boundary of your understanding, and you're committed to also respecting what is and what is real, which is Saturn, then I think, and you're open to maybe having some of your ideas shook up, um, and then it's a great time. It's a great time.
well, Shaka Prani, who
Yeah.
is now deceased, he had said at one time Saturn ruled people,
Mm-hmm.
that ruled the people.
Mm-hmm.
So I think from the Vedic point of view, with Saturn and Neptune, that this lends me to talk about the spiritual involvement.
Yeah.
Plus, also, when I tap into a Pisces vibration, I find it very musical. I
Mm-hmm.
find that with that musical that it can be a vibratory field that we can enter. Now, as a medium, I have to say that when I do tap into spirit, they all have their own sort of song, their own
Yeah.
sort of music, and that we each one of us does. And so I kind of looked at the Vedic and smiled and said, well,
Yeah.
uh, we do have a chance here
Yeah.
to really look and evolve. If that is really where we can listen to the music of the spheres and hear things and want to be a part of um, not only evolving ourselves, but a greater consciousness for this planet, which I'm also very concerned about.
Yeah.
So, what do you think about these three comets that came close? Do you think that they are messengers to wake us up as well? Because I know that they have said that, Three Eye Atlas, and these other comets have come outside of our galaxies, basically. And there had been the projects from the Hopi that did say that they were coming to the blue star to wake us up. And this sort of like, I find it very exciting, that okay, as long as, and you and I know have incredible curiosity, if we can keep that going on, that what do you think we can create?
Yeah, so comets in almost every culture are, signs and portents, omens, and they were a big feature of Indian astrology, but again, modern astrology happens on a computer inside. No one's outside tracking things. So there is a literature of like, what did the comet look like? There are all these like descriptive factors that help you interpret it. So I haven't gone down that rabbit hole, but it is nice. I mean, sort of, again, it's like, don't give up hope. The fact that
That's
there
it.
were
There you
three,
go.
it's like, oh, do we need to, knock on the door three times? Is an omen of like, repetition? Um, you know, the I think you use the metaphor of like waking up. It's, the alarm clock goes off, you hit the snooze, and it gets louder each time. And hopefully we don't need something so terrible to wake us up. Let's respond to the first tinkling of ring. Um, yeah,
And let's use our intuition,
yeah.
because I
Well,
think that's
that's yeah.
part of
Neptune's there. Let's
waking
do it.
up.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like if you are just so, um, if you're not empowered with inside yourself, if you don't really know who you are, or you're not being your authentic self, you're looking for somebody else to tell you. As you've said, Kenneth, you can be very deceived.
yeah,
People can tell you what to believe, who you
yeah,
are, things like that.
yeah,
But yet, you know, the hope of being able to do things. I mean, we can look at that Einstein was considered a lousy student, I mean, all kinds of things. But what is inside of you? What do you want to create? And I think that, yeah, the structures could, to me, that Saturn and Pisces gives us a real sense to build that dream that we've had inside of us, maybe as kids,
yeah,
picking their first comic book astrology reading,
yeah.
making us curious as to what it can and will be.
Right.
So tell me,
Yes.
you're coming to Lilydale, you're going to be on the AI panel, you're
Yes.
going to be teaching two classes.
Yep.
Can you sort of give our friends here an idea of do they need to bring their astrology charts with them? I know you're teaching a Vedic class. Uh,
Yeah.
let's
So I'm
welcome
I'm
them into
teach.
your world.
Yeah, I've been given the opportunity to teach two classes, workshops. Um, One is on ironically, one is on Western astrology and one is an introduction to Vedic astrology. So let me talk about that first. That doesn't require any pre-knowledge. I mean, if you know some astrology, of course, it's going to help, but I'm basically just going to expose one to what is Vedic astrology all about? How can we have a different astrology that makes sense? The structure of it is quite different than Western astrology. The myths of the planets are different. I'm gonna sort of introduce the Vedic world and give you enough information for you to decide if it's something you want to pursue or not, if it's something that is of interest to you. And at a minimum, you will hopefully go away with a better or more cross-cultural understanding of the planets. And I'm gonna focus on Jupiter Um, Coincidentally, the ruler of this conjunction that just happened in sidereal Pisces, and give people some tools to better harness Jupiterian energy, which, if you know absolutely nothing about astrology, Jupiter's the great benefic. It's associated with fulfillment, it's associated with acquisition, wealth, many of the things that human beings like, sugar, are are associated with Jupiter. So we will look at that from the Indian astrology perspective. But that is basically an introduction overview. Um, the other class is
Before you go on,
yes,
can you
yes.
talk about gemstones or pujas or
All
colors?
that will be all that will be touched upon.
That's exciting to
Yeah,
me
yeah.
because, people go astrologically, what kind of gemstone should I wear for prosperity? Um, and what finger should I wear it on? Or what color is really good for me? Or I'm having a bad time. Is there some special prayer I can say to elevate my consciousness? Or what can I do? And not necessarily indulge in becoming a Vedic astrologer, but they can walk away with that kind of knowledge and go, I need to go to see my jeweler.
Yeah, I mean, one of the features of Indian astrology is there's a robust uh, remedial component where you can do something about it in addition to cultivating equanimity and accepting what is. There is like a give and take, and you can, I will be covering all that as well. It's soup to nuts what Indian astrology is all about, what it has to offer, how it's different from Western, how they complement each other, and and of course the unique features of Indian astrology I will get into.
Well, this sounds like fun because, we'll get our jewelers on speed dial. So now you're taking us into the Western world.
Yes, and that talk is, I guess, intermediate, although if you're a beginner, it's really designed for the person who has been studying astrology a while and is just having a hard time, like many of us did, pulling it all together. Like, how do you, okay, this means this, that means that. How do I synthesize all these elements? And we do that through the lens of the ascendant. What is the ascendant? It's what was rising at the time you were born on the eastern horizon. So what I kind of introduce a way of looking at the chart that just automatically starts synthesizing the material almost for you. And I'm hoping that people will go away with just a more profound understanding of their chart, their friends' charts, other charts. So, if you're the type of person that has been dabbling in astrology and you're wanting to kind of like, how do I pull it all together? This is the way. A lot of social media astrology is very um
Sounds fun.
compartmentalized, and it doesn't help. And this concept of, oh, you have the big, if you know the big three, you're halfway there. No, that's the first fib astrologers tell you that I'm going to disabuse you of. It's really the ascendant pulls everything together and starts to unify everything. I mean, you wouldn't want to talk about the brain, heart, and liver, but leave out the nervous system and the circulatory system, the things that actually connect all those together and how they influence each other. So we'll be doing that in the Ascendant lecture, and
Well, you see,
I think
I
it'll be a
see in
lot of
the
fun.
ascendant also as who you are.
Yeah, it is.
And
Right.
that's that Saturn
Yeah.
and Aries kind of aspect that I've been mentioning, that if you know and you can be true to yourself and you get
Yep.
to see the complexity.
Yep.
None of us are a one-trick pony. We all have a lot of different aspects to who we
Yep.
are.
Mm-hmm.
And I am grateful that you're doing the Ascendant because it's really going to address the structure of who we are.
Yep.
And that to me is really important in our future and how we're going to take it to another level.
Yeah, I'm just looking up. because I have a very clever title for this lecture, and I'm just looking it up now. So the title of the lecture is "The Ascendant: Key to Every Door, Door to Every Experience." And yeah, you can go to the Lily Dale website and read more about it, but it'll be great fun. I mean, my intention is both presentations will be great fun with a lot of practical stuff that you can walk away with, think about, implement. Um, I'm very pragmatic in my approach to astrology. I think Patricia's seen that over the years. And really, thank you just for inviting me to participate. I love Lily Dale. I haven't been there in a number of years, so it'll be great to come back and experience it.
Well, it'd be great to have you. Also, the website's up. You can buy classes now, and make sure that you join us for this phenomenal time of concerts and understanding of who you really are. And so you see, by watching this podcast, when you walk in the door of the concert, you go, oh, there's Kenneth Millar. Welcome back to Lilydale.
Yeah,
Well,
and by the way, if anyone does see me, if you do have a question, don't sit on your hands. I'm very approachable. I'm there for everyone basically. So approach me, ask your question, and I'm happy to answer as best I can. And if I don't know the answer, I'll try to point you in the direction of someone or something that does have the answer.
well, I know from your former visits that sometimes we can find you on the porch of our coffee house.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's a great time,
Yeah.
and it is we feel blessed to have you here in Lilydale coming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. And sooner than we realize, we'll all be together.
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
Thank you so much, Patricia.
Oh, my pleasure, my pleasure.